Thank you, Chairman. We are now live.
Thank you very much, and welcome to this evening's Personnel Committee of West Berkshire Council. I'm Councillor Matt Shakespeare, and my fellow members of the council of the committee are Councillor Loco, Councillor Amatrage, Councillor Brooks. I'm also joined by Karen Turner and Sam Hudson, our officers, and we're joined by Sam Chiverton, our clerk, and Thomas Radbourne is our Zoom host this evening. So first item on the agenda, Sam, do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair, we have received apologies from Councillor Laura Coyle.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda are the minutes. We have two sets of minutes to approve. So the first set, could I ask for a proposer and seconder for the minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, the 2nd of July? Councillor Amatrage, Councillor Brooks to second. Could we have a vote, please, to approve those meeting minutes? All in favour? Okay, carried. And the second set of minutes held on Thursday, the 28th of November. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Amatrage and a seconder. Councillor Loco, and all in favour of carrying these minutes? Okay, thank you. Thank you. The next item on the agenda are declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest from members this evening? No, thank you very much. The next item is the statutory pay policy. Karen, could I please ask you to introduce that to us, please?
Thank you, Chairman. So the Council is required, in accordance with Section 38 of the Localism Act 2011, to publish an annual pay policy statement. This report seeks to secure compliance with that duty by seeking approval of the statutory pay policy for publication. We are asking for Personnel Committee to agree for this policy to go to full Council for approval in March. I'd just like to point out, it's worth noting that point 2.1 is not fully clear of what it is asking. This will be updated ahead of full council, but we are asking for you to agree that the monitoring officer has authority to update Appendix 1 following any pay awards given during the year to 2025-2026.
Thank you. That's a very useful point of clarity. Actually, that's something I was going to ask. Could I ask if there are any questions from the floor about the report? Councillor Brooks.
Chairman, it's an annual thing, and it is, I won't say formulaic, but you know, we know what we're doing with this. Where I think I've got some assurance is that we use hay pay scales as well, don't we, on this? So we aren't making this up. We are taking direction from the hay pay scales, and so I don't really see any particular problem. We start with the chief executive and the differentials between the chief exec and the lowest paid workers, and I think that's probably been maintained in terms of percentage terms. I'd like, perhaps you could tell us that, because you know, you can see on page 19 the chief executive highest median salary, and in page 16 the lowest salary, and I think that's been maintained in terms of that differential. But that's the points I would draw to your attention.
That's the grading and the pay scales that we have there. Yes.
Any other questions?
What's the hay scale? So it is the job evaluation process that we follow. So essentially the pay scales that are allocated to each grade, and we follow a job evaluation process in order to assess roles against those grades. So it's part of it's part of the so it's Corn Ferry Hay scales. So they are the grading system essentially that we follow, that will provide us with the grade based on the job descriptions, and the grade is then allocated to that salary.
It's industry standards.
Within those scales, yes. Those that use that grading system, yes.
Does every local government use that scale?
Excuse me, Chair, I do apologise. Councillor Loco, can you use your microphone, please? Thank you.
You're right. Apologies. All right. So I was just wondering, do all local government use that scale?
I don't believe
I
all
wouldn't
local.
say all, but the majority be, Councillor Loco, do that. It's a time-honoured thing going back years and years and years. Whether Hay are part of Hayes, the logistics and staffing, I don't know, but it is a nationally recognised comparison
Okay.
of what the right sort of median salary should be for these grades.
Okay.
So we're guided by it. We don't have to follow it, but we're guided by it. So it makes us competitive with other authorities.
And what does our policy say regarding adopting it? I mean, what position do we take on the scale? Just, do we take the high end, medium end, or?
Bear in mind, sir, that the documents on pages 17, 16, 17 have ranges in them.
Yes.
So that enables us to be flexible within this, the Hay pay scale,
Okay.
not wedded to one figure.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to get a sense of how it's been applied across the range. Thank you.
Any other questions? I have one, maybe a sort of suggestion. I think the apologies, being an engineer, I'm quite interested in the stats. And I thought the ratios of the median to highest and highest to lowest were very interesting. I wonder if it's worthwhile us having some form of histogram to show that there's quite a large number of grades there, and to sort of show, you know, the number of people or the percentage of people on each one of these grades. It might be a very sort of you know, might give us a better view on, you know, the spread of pay, because obviously, you know, we have a median in there, we have a mean in there, which is great, but might be interesting to see that in future. If it's not a gigantic amount of work, it shouldn't be. Thank you.
I can take that away. Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And I think what we're doing, we're recommending this to full council for adoption. So I'm happy to propose that.
That's good. Thank you very much, Councillor Brooks. Can I have a seconder? Sounds Raj. A vote on the matter? All in favour? Okay. We'll recommend that to full council in March, I think. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda, item 6. It's an update on HR activity in Q1 and Q2. And Karen, could I ask you again to introduce that, please?
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is an information-only report for the purposes of updating on HR activity for Q1 and Q2 of 2024-2025 for Personnel Committee. This report is part of a biannual update to Personnel Committee and sets out some of the changes to HR activity and statistics in the current year. The report also includes some of the detail behind the key statistics. What I suggest is that we go through the paper section by section, take questions after each section, unless there is a preference to go through the whole paper and ask questions at the end.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. So section 4. Is the executive summary, and this provides an update on recruitment activity, training, wellbeing and performance management, which is casework. The report includes the detail behind a range of statistics from HR, but the main items highlighted are that there has been an increase in the amount of casework within HR for the first 2 quarters of the current year. There has been significant recruitment activity in the current year with an increase in applicant numbers and new starters. The turnover figure for all staff has increased to 13.77% if we look at the figure now to annualise it from 12.47%. Sickness absence has increased to 10.24 days per worker in the current year from 8.75 days for the same period in 23-24.
Are there any
I
questions?
think we'll come back to some of those points.
I think we'll cover them in more detail in the budget section.
As we go through. So section 5 is employment data. So a full year of employment data is published at the end of each year. So it's normally at the end of the year, which is at the end of March. This report is the 6 monthly report, and where a further report will be done at the end of the full year. So at the next Personnel Committee report, you will have a full year's worth of data.
Karen, I understand that there's an amendment to the table in there that we're going to include as an appendix after this meeting. Is that right?
That's correct. I'm just going to
Thank
come
you.
on to that
Sorry.
one. Thank you. No, that's fine. So employment data will cover headcount and vacancy data. We have added at point 5.2 an updated table, and that table looks at the headcount and post data for the last 4 years. But for the 24-25 data, this is taken as of the 26th of November. Okay. And then at the bottom of 5.2, you will see a breakdown of vacant posts. So we then on 5.3 also looks at turnover. As I said, the annualised figure would work out at 13.77%. And that would be an increase from 12.47% from last year. The average UK turnover is 14% or lower. I'll go straight into section 6, and then we can, if there's questions.
Would it be okay to just
Yes, of
go
course you
straight
did.
to section 5? I think there's
Yep.
a lot of data there. It's very interesting. It paints a very good picture there, and I think a lot of people have a few questions about it. Colleagues, are there any questions? Oh, Councillor Loco.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions. The first one is my accountancy training. I'd like to understand percentages. So I want to understand the percentage of salary costs vis-a-vis the budget. So it's just good to get a sense of how much we're paying for salaries. So if you're able to provide that percentage now, if not, I think that would be useful information to have.
Chairman, I think you need somebody from finance here. But when you take out the Volker and Veolia and other outsourced providers of services, you probably get around 60% of our spend is on salaries. But I think a financier, somebody from our finance department would be more accurate than that, Councillor Loco. But that's roundabout. So if you're spending 180 million, you can work out that maybe about 120 million is on salaries. But, I'm doing some very crude response here, sir.
Okay, that's fine. And that's very useful because, typically that's the kind of, so it's a very significant amount. So therefore it's an area that requires a lot of attention just by the size of the budget. So, okay, that's useful. I just didn't know what that percentage was. Now, I'm looking at the head count, and from 2021 to 24, the numbers have dropped. But when you look at the FTEs, they're going up. And I was just trying to understand what's happening there.
Councillor Brooks?
Has Councillor Loco got the, if I can refer you to that, sir, and what
This is the amended table that.
all the people at home and those looking in, or dozens of them, I'm sure, will not see what I can see and you can see now, Councillor Loco. Posts FTE are down from 1767 23 24 to 1637. So we're moving back towards 2021 2022, sir. So without that column, I would be concerned as you are. With that column, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you look at the occupied FTE. So what's the difference between post, which I'm assuming is in post, and occupied FTE?
Karen?
Sorry, I didn't get
No, that's fine. I can take that. So the post FTE will be the full calculation of, so the FTE, it may not necessarily mean one post. So one in here may not mean one post. That's the full-time equivalent. So that is the posts, all the posts we've got calculated as one combined figure. The occupied is those posts that are filled, so they have somebody sat in them. And then the headcount is the number of people that we have, and you would add in the vacant posts, or so essentially the full number if we were at a fully established headcount that you would have. And then you also have the vacant post data here. This is done in posts, so this is the actual number of posts that we have vacant at present.
Okay, thank you. But then when you look at the trend for the post FTE, and I like that it's 23.4 is coming down, but 23.4 versus 24.5 is going the other way. So occupied FTE is increasing. Is that because the vacancies are being taken up, or what's the explanation for that?
So that could be a number of factors in terms of the numbers here. So in terms of the occupied numbers going up, we have had a significant amount of recruitment activity, which you will see later in the talent attraction section. It could be additional fixed term posts being put in for, particular projects, or if there's particular funding to undertake a certain activity. So it could be a combination of factors. But with the vacancy numbers coming down, you will have the occupied numbers going up.
Okay, I get that now, because the occupied FTE plus your vacant posts gives you your post FTE.
Councillor Brooks?
So I draw your attention to vacant posts because the committee will recall I was uncomfortable with the previous figure at the last personnel committee meeting of 380. And what we've been doing, and Sam and Karen can tell us more about this, is refining that down through the iTrent system where we've been putting on the vacancies. And the 225 figure that you see tonight in the document, the page that you put round, is much, much, much closer to the reality of posts that we have vacant at the moment. However, we are not looking to recruit to all of them as we sit here now. And if you go down to the table below on page 28, the total vacancy figures breakdown is at 26th of November 2024. The number of vacant posts 225, the live adverts are 32. Some of those are multiple. And I'm talking as if I know all this stuff, but I do. So, I hope you don't mind my sharing it with you. And that could add up to about 70 posts that we're looking actively advertising, because there's multiple posts in there. I think you mentioned earlier, Sam Hodson, educational psychologists. We need several of those. So 32 adverts can result in 70 odd actual posts that we are prepared to recruit to. We have 28 who are in the process of starting. And then we have added into that the agency workers excluding the care homes. I'll come back to that in a sec. So the 104 at the bottom of that table, we're probably not actively looking to recruit to, because within the budget build, we may find that there are posts we will delete. They're not occupied, they're vacant and considered not to be necessary going forward. So it's fluid in that respect. The agency workers excluding care homes, 61 professional engineers, they could be social workers outside of care homes. We have omitted that for a number of reasons. One, the number in care homes is extremely fluid. Some people will go in for one shift. So on Monday, you may have 40 people in care homes, and Tuesday you've got 30. It's so lumpy. But equally, members will know that we're in the process of transferring 2 of those care homes to a private provider. And that means that cohort of temporary workers working in those care homes will effectively disappear because the private provider will provide the service. There's a lot of information for you there. My overall message to you is I'm so pleased to see that we're down at 225, which is much more closer to reality. And if that's coming out of iTrent in the future, we can have more assurance that it's actually the posts we're trying to recruit to, the held posts, but vacant posts, but held. Yeah. And we've got much better grasp of our numbers here than we've had for a while.
Thanks, Councillor Brooks. Councillor Matrage, any questions? Yeah. Yeah, Councillor Loker, please.
Thanks for that. And that's just actually made me think about, so that 104 is not included in the headcount figure, is it? Or is it in the post-FTE? It's in the...
So that is included in your vacant figure. So your vacancy figure of 225, that does include that 104 in that because they are still in the system as vacancies, but they are not necessarily roles we are actively recruiting to at present.
Oh, so if you take the 225, that 104, you have to take that out of the 225. Is that what you're saying?
As it stands, we do record, we do.
No, but I'm just want to get a
yes,
sense
if you
that
wanted to look at accurate, yes.
it's included in the 225 and it's included in the headcount.
Yes.
Right. Okay. The agency workers, what do you mean by agency? Is it recruited by the homes or are they agency, or is it direct agencies for us, for the council?
So these are temporary agency workers. So they are recruited through our Commensura contract.
So what's that?
So Commensura is our managed service provider that we use to provide any temporary staffing arrangements. It could be to cover perhaps long-term sickness. We might use it for roles where we've only got a very short window of funding, or particularly within the care homes as well, where you have that frontline staff, where we can have quite sort of changing needs from day to day. So that would be generally where we would use it, or in those particularly skilled roles that we are actively recruiting for, that we need someone to hold that until we recruit.
Okay, so in the headcount, what's the number of headcount in the agency homes that are likely to be transferred? Because they're in the headcount of 1537. Everybody's in the headcount.
That does not include temporary agency workers. That headcount is those that would be directly employed by us. So those are not, those agency workers might be filling a post within that is currently vacant, but they are not recorded on in this data here.
So I get that, but the head count is the numbers. That's where everybody is. Yeah. And then you recruit against that head, whether it's 2. So that's why you have the FTEs, which begins to break it down. You have 3, 4, depending on how it breaks down. So by definition, then the staff for those homes have to be in the head count.
So that's
otherwise, how you are taking agency staff against the headcount? The headcount must exist.
Councillor Loco's logic is absolutely sound.
Absolutely sound. What I would say is you do find perhaps sometimes you may need to go over that headcount in a care home if you have, for example, we might get an outbreak of an illness and you might find staff off sick.
I'm not criticizing. I'm just trying to get a sense of how the numbers are hanging together, because it's my training. So if I look at numbers and things don't add up, then I just go there. And if I don't understand it, it might be just because I'm being thick. But that's why they train us in audit, to be thick sometimes deliberately. But because I've also managed headcount numbers, supporting the HR function, and I know it's a very delicate area. So I'm just trying to understand. So, because if we're moving staff out, and I like the idea because this is about cost management, then we have to be able to see that if we take these numbers out, this is going to be the impact on the headcount. So what would that impact be on the headcount if we take those two out?
I think the officers might want to come back to it.
Okay.
I think it's a very pertinent question. What happens to the 1537 when those two care homes are transferred in 3 or 4 months' time?
Yeah.
Can we come back to you on it?
Okay. Okay.
I think it's a very pertinent question. I think my concern, Chairman, with the 380 figure from last time, you may recall that in the newspapers the next day or the next week, it made it look like we were recruiting hundreds of people or trying to recruit hundreds of people. It simply wasn't true. In fact, what we're hearing tonight is we are really trying to recruit about 100, 120 people. We're actively trying to recruit those, and they are to backfill people who've left. We have the 13.77% turnover rate. It is not new posts we're developing and adding to the establishment. It's simply keeping the wheels turning in highways, planning, and wherever you name it.
Sorry, Chair. I think it's important. That's a very important point, actually, to report the number that you want people to know about. I mean, the number is a number. If you put 380 out, then people think it's 380, but it's not, because there's 104 dead numbers in inverted commas. So I think it's important to focus on the active numbers. You can always define it as you want to be, but people zero in on that number and begin to think that, why are we recruiting 380 people when you're trying to increase my council tax at the same time?
Thank you very much, Councillor Loco. I think those are excellent points, and I think clarity and using language that the man in the street or the man in the chair's chair, in my case, can understand is really important. I think the key thing there is that number in the amendment that we've got is that the full-time equivalent is dropping from 1767 to 1637. And I think we had a really good discussion there to show that actually the 100 or so posts that we are actually actively recruiting for are to replace those 13.7% of turnover that we've got. So I think it's a really nice picture, and it's a very complicated picture. And thank you both very much for being able to shine some light on that. Sorry, Karen, are there any more questions on section 5 before we move on to section 6?
Just a wonder, really. Why you would say the resignation number is high, 74, it stands out in the table. Any particular reason, any particular area that this is, or is it just industry trend, so to speak?
You mean the leavers?
Yes, the leavers at 74.
In what table, sir? Page
5.3. Yeah, 5.3.
20.
Yeah.
Well,
I
it's a
think
6-month period.
I think the stats in the paragraph above table 5.3, it says there that the turnover there annualized comes to 13.77%, and there's a UK average of 14%. So it looks like that. I mean, don't want to put words in your mouth, Karen, but it looks like that we're sort of around the UK average.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Councillor Antrage.
Chairman, thank you, Chairman. It's not a question, it's just an observation. I do know that we care for our employees, and we share their personal in terms of their in terms of adversity. Like I noticed there are 3 people who died in service. So I just want to make sure that these are just not numbers we are looking at, like there are colleagues who left us, who died. So there is some way HR is, I think, taking care in terms of making sure is that their names are, I think, I'm not sure whether it is a GDPR thing, but they should be known, like they are colleagues who worked and contributed and then they died, and we care for them, and that's what. So just not numbers in the tables. That's what I wanted.
Within a department, if an incident happens like this, then the whole department would be made aware. We would provide support to colleagues. If they required it, we have the wellbeing. We're there to support all employees. And we would also support the families.
Chairman, if I may.
Yes, Councillor Brooks.
And again, for Councillor Loco, I don't know about your own organisation, but a turnover under 10% is probably unhealthy. You're just not getting a churn which brings in new ideas and talent. And so we're a little bit under the national average, but we're moving up towards it. And at some point, we do need to do a little bit more assessment of reasons for leaving. Now, I've been pressing to have HR involved in exit interviews. They're not quite there yet. But if you were my boss and I left you, I probably wouldn't want to tell you why I'm leaving you. But I might tell Sam Hodson. And so that check and balance is something I'd like to introduce. It's not quite there yet. And then the 74 resignations, you won't be told what I said about you, but you get a trend that there were a number of people, and not everybody will do an exit interview, but say 50 out of 74 did an exit interview, and 20 of them said, I'm not satisfied with my boss, then our behaviour framework is not doing the work it needs to do. So we need that analysis. And if we're going to trend up like this, it's more important than ever.
The world of exit interviews, and it's that structure, because there could be some underlying problems that need to be addressed around the behavior framework or whatever.
I just wonder what I would say if you were my boss.
I know what you would say. Where's my tie?
Well, on that point, I'd like to carry on with the next section, please.
Yes, so section 6 is about starters, leavers and turnovers for Q1 and Q2. And at the back, at Appendix A, you will see a couple of charts that will go through for the last 4 years plus Q1, Q2 of the number of starters, leavers, the turnover, whether it's at 6 months or annualised, voluntary turnover, average length of service of leavers, average length of service of employees employed at year end. And then we've got some more graphs in there that look at percentage of starters by age range and percentage of all leavers of during the last 5 years by age range as well.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any specific questions, Councillor Matrash?
Yeah, this is, thank you, Chairman. This is a question now. In terms of attracting talents, there's a brief mention of home working, but not in this section. But just my question was on the home working one. Is there any change in the policy of home working where it's two ways we can look at it. One is like home working is an advantage for people who are working far, and they would be rather spending their time at logging in and working rather than commuting. But it's on the other side, for a council like us, people need to be in the council office to particularly the frontline staff, to meet residents or even councillors. No one wants to be coming and seeing here an empty office. My question is, has there policy changed in terms of West Berkshire promoting home working or discouraging or advising our employees, colleagues to come to office number of days or something like that? Say, is it policy changed in the last 1 year?
Not since the last time. So the policy is we have a flexible working policy, and employees need to be in 40% of their working week in the office. There are some departments, as you say, that are frontline, and they will need to be in more regular than that. But the flexible working policy has been there pre-COVID.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
As you rightly say, Karen, there are some departments which don't lend themselves to home working. a social worker might have homework at home as a base, but they're out and about all over the district. What we are doing, to give Councillor Armitage some background here, is some analysis of the different departments to establish that the 2 days a week in, the 40%, is consistent and consistent by individuals. But there's no change to policy at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
I think the one I'm still waiting for, and I've asked for it quite a few times, and I think, Sam, I'd hope you're making progress, is the number of leavers in the first year of employment. So it's that stickiness that they come, they like it, and they stay for the 8 years and 7 months, which is the average, I think, at the moment. How many do we lose in the first year? Because if that's high, we're not inducting and bringing them into the team. But if it's low, we're doing a good job. Without that, your leavers might be skewed, that you've got a lot leaving in the first year. And if they get past the first year, they stay a long time. That we need to analyse.
I will take that way and get.
Last for a while, I think iTrent will enable us to do it more easily. But yeah.
Councillor Loker.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the percentage starters, just an observation more than anything else. And looking at the sort of how you've analysed it, I think that's very good. But when you get to the 55 to 64, you see the percentage is quite low in terms of starters. But then when you start to look at it in terms of leavers, the percentage is going up. So just wondering, is there any particular explanation behind it, or it's just the way things are?
I have no explanation, no, sorry.
Councillor Brooks.
Clearly, after the age of 55, retirement comes into view, except for me. And therefore, we're finding, I think, across the country, and I speak from my recruitment background here, Councillor Loco, that more people are actually leaving the workplace after the age of 55. And it's quite sad because we're losing a lot of talent of people who say it from 55, 60, 62, 63, I'm not going to work anymore. That is a lost stream of talent, which we're reflecting here. We're reflecting, except council, we're reflecting here. Yeah, no, some of us are not allowed to retire. But we're reflecting that here. So it's not unusual, I think, in my experience, which is, as I say, from a recruitment background, quite strong.
Thank you very much for that. Karen, could you move on to the next section, please?
I will hand over to Sam now for the next section.
Thanks, Sam.
Right, so yeah, we are looking at section 7, which is talent attraction. So I'll just go through a few highlights from this section and then take any questions. So this data is sort of runs in line with the other data. So we're looking at Q1, Q2, so the 1st of April through to the 30th of September 24. We've seen an increase in new starters. We've seen a 37% increase in new starters during that period. We've also seen a 24% increase in application numbers during that period. We have rolled out the recruitment and onboarding module within iTrent, which has some great extra features. Managers can now book interviews directly on the system, giving candidates choices of slots. So there are some real positive elements within the new system. Looking at early careers, we've made progress with developing sort of T-levels within the organisation. We've got some really good links with the new T-level centre at Kennet School and also with Newbury College. We've increased the focus on graduate and postgraduate apprenticeships. So in the last 12 months, we've seen a 177% increase in level 6 and a 133% increase in level 7 learners, which are those sort of graduate and postgraduate courses, which is really great in our particularly hard to fill areas. We've hosted 24 work experience students, so that's a 60% increase versus the previous month, 6 months, sorry. We've hosted 9 T-level students, which again is a 50% increase versus the previous 6 months. We've launched our EVP and our new careers site. So we have seen some really positive trends with the numbers of people coming and viewing the careers site. We had a 61% increase in new users and a 59% increase and existing users versus the same period in the first 6 weeks when we launched the site. We are now at around sort of 58, 59% on both. So we are keeping that trend where people are still coming and visiting the careers site. Looking at agency, we are down. So this was as of September. We were down a further 15% in numbers to a total of 144, and that includes the workers within the care homes. And we are forecasting a spend in and around 7 million this year, which is a decrease from the previous year and a further decrease from the year before that. We've moved, in fact, I've got a slight update on these figures, but at this time we've moved 45 agency workers over to direct employment, and that equates to a saving of 726,000.
Thank you very much for that. There are some absolutely fantastic figures in there. And, having been on this committee, since I became a councillor, I've seen some of the things that we wanted to do, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and they've come into fruition. I think the one that really there's a number that stand out for me, but I think it was a 24% increase in applications. And I remember when I first joined, and we were talking, you were talking, and Paul and the team were talking, Olympia, we're talking about how difficult it is to apply for a job at West Berkshire Council. To see that that's risen by 24%, it's absolutely fantastic. What a transformation. That's something we should be very proud of, I think. It's really important. And I know other people will have things to say as well, but when I read through this, I really felt, that the things are moving. It's fantastic. The other one that I just wanted to mention, again, something that was brought out as a policy that we wanted to do and things that we wanted to achieve here, was moving agency workers to become direct employees, and to be able to say that that's often the same people coming in and doing the job for us, and we've been able to save, £726,000. £726,000. What a fantastic thing. So I read this section and I sort of skipped out the room. My wife asked me what had happened. It's really good, but. Enough of me. Do we have any more questions, on this section? Yeah, Councillor Brooks.
This is a terrific success story. This really is. We've driven down the cost of our freelance workers by over £4 million. We've put out our employee value proposition. Why would you like to work here? Why do people work here? We built a website around that. We built a recruitment website around that. You can put a CV in now. You had to do an application form. This is a complete transformation. And now the figures are showing us that as well. And I give credit to all the staff, but particularly Sam Hodson. We're both from a recruitment background. We worked together on this, and you took up the baton and ran with it, Sam. And it's just terrific. As a success story, it won't get traction on every doorstep and every resident. But my golly, in terms of being a better authority, this is tremendous.
Councillor Loco?
Yes, I think I'm excited to see, to hear that, because often, when you're in discussions, sometimes people do wonder what it is and how attractive it is to work. But one of the things that would be useful is just to, certainly because people do ask me if there are any jobs going, and I just don't know how or where to point them to. So if there's a place on the website or some information, it will be very useful to know. So then we can just point them to that as well. The question I have is about how automated is the system? What do you use AI in our recruitment process, and where do we use it, if we do?
Yeah, so at the moment we do use AI internally. So we have a recruitment request form. So if a manager wants to request to go out to advert for a post, they will complete a form, and within that we have sort of fed quite a few adverts that we've written and what we think is a really good advert into AI. So ChatGPT now sits behind that, and it will actually generate an advert based on the job description and the information that the manager puts in. It does require a little bit of tweaking. We reckon they're about a sort of 7, 8 out of 10 on their own, but it needs that personal touch. So the managers will then go through and edit, but it will give the correct format. So you will notice that the adverts are now in a much more sort of standard format than we had previously. So that sits behind on that form. At the moment, that's the only part of the process that we have AI within, but it is something that we're looking at across recruitment.
Okay, that's a relief because some of these systems, I watched a program yesterday, Coded Bias, and it kind of just opens your eyes to the limitations and the challenges around AI. Because AI, from what I understand it, it's built on data that is already held. So if there's bias, which clearly existed, it's built into the system. And so there's a lot of things happening out there around, the challenges within AI. And I just wanted to be reassured that at least within what here, we don't have to deal with that issue. And then the other thing, again, I don't know if you collect that data, is the demographics, because every time you fill a form, they ask you your age, your sex. Do we do that? And do we share it? Or at least are we aware of how the people who are coming in, how do they break down in terms of age? I don't know what you call that thing, but there's a section that they ask you to complete where they ask you for everything. You could not say, have the option not to say, but that data is captured, and it's captured for monitoring, for monitoring purposes, really. Do we capture that data?
We do capture that data, yes. So we are in the process of building our reports within iTrent. It's a bit like getting given a box of Lego. When you get iTrent, you've got to build everything. So we are in the process of building those reports, and actually we do capture that data, but we need to build the reports to pull that out of the system and be able to report on it. That
would be an interesting report to see. I mean, I'm always interested in that, because if you're asking for the data, what are you doing with it? And when you monitor, I mean, how are you working against that? Is there some kind of, I mean, I know in this day and age, DEI and all these things are going out of the window, and that's not what one is advocating, but it's useful to just know where are people coming from? It's a particular demographic, particular age group. So that 24%, what does it break down to? It starts to give more insight into the levers, status. I mean, I think the more data you have going in, the better the quality of your data when you're monitoring as well. And I know so it's good to know that we capture it. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, Councillor Brooks.
Chairman, the recruitment software industry, of which iTrent has a module, which is their recruitment module, is getting more sophisticated year on year, and will start to use AI to filter and screen people and say, look, you had 80 applicants and there are 12 that are fit for purpose. Now, that's a good thing and a bad thing, because good that it reduces work, but you still might have lost somebody in the other 68 who was perfect. So AI is not the answer in itself. How do you keep the controls and checks and balances as you use AI? I've got 2 points to make on this. I hope we're going to look to see more exploitation of iTrent in terms of harvesting people who have applied, who may not have been successful in this round of recruitment, but we can reach out to in future recruitment campaigns. That means you don't have to advertise, because they have agreed their details are kept on file, and are mining that database and reaching out to Matt Shakespeare and saying, you weren't successful last time, but another role has come up. That's very powerful if we can harness that. The other one that we relaunched, it'd be nice to get some feedback on this carefully, is referrals. So Karen works here and knows of a vacancy in her department, and has a friend who works at Wokingham but lives near here in the HR department, and she says, why don't you come and work here? And there is a financial incentive to Karen for that referral. And we relaunched that a bit to get more awareness of it, and I'm not sure yet. It's not going to be dozens of people. It's not going to be dozens, but if we can get 10 a year from that, it's healthy.
Thank you.
Yes, so we have relaunched the scheme. So, and I think what we realised is actually it was more well known at Market Street than some of our other locations. So we have sent posters out to all of our sites. We've got them up in every break room, hopefully, across all of the sites. So yeah, we have seen an uptick in the numbers of referrals that we've received. Exact numbers I can get for you, and perhaps it's something we can start putting on next time. But yeah, we have definitely seen an increase in referrals, but we have to keep sort of letting people know that it's there, and keep advertising and pushing it through all the channels we can.
Fantastic, thank you. Karen, are you taking the next section? Thank you very much.
Okay, so section 11 is performance management and casework. So this area encompasses disciplinary and capability, grievances, whistleblowing, sickness absence, ill health retirement, and any related adjustments. It also will include restructures, any two-peers and redundancies. So the section will, as I say, what I would like to say is, although we do provide advice to our schools, the data here is just in relation to corporate employees only and does not include the schools' casework that we pick up from there. So table 1 on 11.3 shows the total number of cases that we have had so far for quarter 1, quarter 2. Table 2 then breaks it down into informal and formal cases. And then table 3 is it shows the variation in the main types of cases that we deal with. So disciplinary grievance, sickness absence, ill health, retirement and probation. We don't provide any numbers in this to ensure confidentiality and data protection. Any questions on this?
Councillor Brooks.
Chairman, I'm a little bit confused because in the executive summary, it says casework is ticking up, but the table on page 33 suggests it's ticking down.
On page 33. So on page 33, so if you look at the previous years, that is for full years. Well, the 24-25 graph for the total number of cases is just for
Gotcha.
quarter
So-
1, quarter 2.
Right. So it is ticking up quite a bit.
Yes.
Are we going to be able to get a little bit more understanding of that?
The reason for that is because the HRBP team now have regular meetings with managers so that we're being proactive rather than reactive with cases. So if there's an issue in regards to a probation or a performance that may have not been picked up previously, the team are now working and supporting the managers and the employees through this.
So what you're saying is it's not necessarily comparable. If we look at that graph and as you say, we're halfway through, it looks like it's going to be double what we had next year, but it's because the HR team are actually effectively actively going out and seeking more cases and trying to get in there earlier before it becomes a problem.
We're not, I don't like the word seeking more cases. We're supporting the managers.
Right.
So if there is an issue that is arising, so they will go through, we would coach them through and support them through the informal stages.
Yeah.
If there is no, what's the word I'm looking for? If there's no improvement and we have to go down to formal, then that's where we're looking. And as you see then on the types of cases for sickness, because we're doing this and because we're being made aware of sickness absence, which may have not been recorded previously, is now being recorded. So yes, our cases on sickness absence are going up, but we're managing it and we're being proactive rather than not managing it.
Thank you. That's a really interesting explanation of what's going on, because just looking at the numbers straight off, it looked concerning, but that's a really useful sort of additional piece of information. Any other questions on that section, Councillor Brooks?
I'm looking at the casework. It's good to hear that you're getting in early. It does look, if you look at table 3, case types It's sickness, I think, if I've got my colours right,
Mhm.
that is the case types, that really is going up. When is sickness a case? Is it on long-term sick? Because long-term sick always worries me. And mental health sickness worries me. Because if somebody's off a fair while, it gets harder to come back. And the work you need to do is quite early on with somebody who's suffering to make sure they feel safe to come back. And, you know, because I think to myself, the problems they're experiencing, unless we can fix them, are still here when they come back. So that's a real concern of mine, how we look at long-term sick. But you seem to be indicating it wasn't necessarily long-term sick. Do tell me.
And so some of this can be short-term sickness. So if someone is signed off with mental health issues, as soon as we're aware, and that could be within the short-term period, which is less than 28 days sickness, we will automatically ask the manager to get consent to refer them to occupational health. The quicker, as you say, the quicker that we can support the managers and support the employees, have the conversations with the employees, then we're looking at what can we do to get them back into work. So that is happening. We are doing that now.
Thank you. Do you like to carry on with the next section? Thank you.
So section 12 is sickness absence, and as it said at the beginning, for the sickness absence at the present time, for quarter one, quarter two has gone up to 10.24 days from 8.75 days for the same period last time. The 12.2 shows the number of working days per person left per directorate. So as we know, as of last year, we split people into adults and children. So you had a full year for 2023-24, and then we've got quarter one, quarter two for 24-25. The final graph then breaks it down into percentage and the number of working days per employee. So as I say, the annualised working days lost per person is 1.49 working days above the reported quarter two figure of 23-24, which was annualised at 8.75 working days lost per employee. The absence, so as I say, we have short-term and long-term absence. Short-term is anything under 28 days. Long-term then is 28 days or more. We do break that down, as you can see from the chart. The most common reason for long-term absence for quarter one, quarter two is mental health conditions, and the most common reason for short-term absence is minor illnesses. So that would include cough, colds, flu, sickness, nausea, etc. But the most common reason for both short-term and long-term absence in 23-24 was mental health conditions. So that has changed this year. So whereas short term is now coughs and colds. So in total, we have 33.4% of all quarter one, quarter two of this year. Sickness absence long term and short term was due to mental health condition compared to last year's at 33.2%. So only a very slight increase. As I say, we are addressing sickness absence with the teams and working with the managers to try and reduce and support them.
Thank you very much, Karen. Councillor Brooks.
So on the table on page 35, it does make a point of saying if the care homes were not included, we do 12 days lost per person within the adult social care directorate. It's still a bit high. And I think we should have at the next report, if it's trending that high, a bit more explanation. By the next report, 6 months down the tracks, we may not have the care homes, but if that's still at 12, it's a lot higher really than the other directorates, and we could do with some greater explanation, I feel.
I will take that away.
Thank you very much, Karen. Is it you looking at section 13? If you could, please, thank you.
So section 13 is about appraisals, and the table shows the percentage completions by directorate. There was no data available in Q1 due to the manager service not being live. We're aiming to publish the performance management model in iTrent and therefore be able to improve appraisal rates thereafter.
I was quite surprised to see the percentages of people completing appraisals for their team. My experience, having an appraisal is a really important care point in the year for members of the team, and it's a really important thing for retaining staff and understanding what their motivations are, what their plans are for the next year, how you can develop them, how you can make them better. And I must admit, in previous meetings, I was quite concerned about the values in the old system, and to now see that in the new system, which is probably hopefully more accurate data, the numbers have dropped quite considerably. I mean, children and families, it's less than half of people are getting their appraisals, which is concerning. I know it did mention in the report that there is further promotion of the importance of completing appraisals, but I think it really does need some serious motivation of team leaders and managers to be able to do that. I don't know if you've got any more information on that or anything you could salve my mind with.
We have been rolling performance management training out to managers to be able to assist them with doing appraisals, with doing one-to-ones, and to be able to be supporting their employees. An appraisal isn't just once or twice a year. It should be looking at every month, should be sitting down, and that's what we're working on.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
I think it needs more rigour at the top of the organisation. 13.3, Karen, I imagine you've written this. We are hopeful that the introduction of the performance review model in iTrent, along with workflow and scheduling and employee self-service, would encourage managers and staff to complete and record objectives with ease. I don't want to be hopeful. I want us to have some confidence that these changes will not just encourage managers, but we'll see that managers and staff do complete and record objectives with ease. I think we need to be stronger in our response, in our minutes, and to our chief executive and the corporate directors to say this needs to improve, and we're giving you the tools to make it easier to do so.
Thank you, Councillor Loca.
So thank you. Just taking that a bit further, is just wondering if performance appraisal is a KPI for the team leads. So is it included in the assessment? In my world, if you manage people, you must do it because it's part of your assessment. So I don't know if does that happen?
I don't believe currently appraisals are a KPI for line managers, but that's something we can go away and confirm for you.
I think we feed that back to via the minutes. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Councillor Loca. It's an excellent point.
Yeah,
Councillor
Chairman, I completely agree on the Councillor Brooks. So this should be a KPI. This should be one of the core objectives of being a manager, because the main objective of being a manager is to lead the team as well. And if they're not able to do this appraisal, spend that time, I should start to worry on that one. Yeah.
That's great. Karen, you want to carry on?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So section 14 is training. So since April, there's been a training holiday for e-learning, as the Learning Hub did not start its staggered rollout until November of 24. The rollout has been successful and all staff have access to the Learning Hub and can complete their mandatory training, so all their e-learning. Feedback that the team have got has been positive so far, and the table at 14.2 shows the types of training and activity that has taken place since April.
Councillor Brooks.
On 14.2, we certainly have grabbed data protection security essentials by the throat, haven't we? 25 sessions and sheep dipped 631 people through it. Have we called up now? Because it jumps off the page. Now, I'm not decrying that we need to do that, but have we got our emphasis right? Because it's certainly, I can see the emphasis, what it's been the last 6 months. And the other one I'd say is, I'd ask the question, what's a courageous conversation?
So a courageous conversation is how to manage, the difficult conversations and training. So they've named it courageous conversations rather than difficult conversations.
Politicians have them all the time. Have we now, do you know, got over that sort of what looks like a catch-up on data protection security essentials?
So the data protection has to be done, renewed every year. So therefore, where we had no e-learning and be able to do it, everybody then had to do it by a certain time. So we did have to all do it, before the end of September. Once Learning Hub they released that to be able to do it online, or it was being done via Teams or face-to-face meetings.
But if we all had to do it, why is it only 631?
But that's from April till September.
We'll look forward to the other 900 or whatever going through it in the next half year.
Councillor Amatraj.
Yes, and again, the completing the mandatory training should be part of the KPIs for all employees. From my experience, I'm just because as a people manager, we had KPIs as well as employees, managers. We have to make sure that all the reportees under us have completed their training. That's the first tick box. That is, okay, have they done? Otherwise, it comes up as a report to say, okay, yeah, it is not complete. So
when an employee starts and as part of their induction program, which they would be working through with their line manager, there would be a list of mandatory training that they would need to complete. So that should be gone through. We can look at seeing whether the manager is able to check whether it's been completed. So we need to talk to workforce development to be able to provide that information back. But, for new learners, new starters that I've had, yes, we follow the induction plan.
Councillor Loker.
Thank you, Chair. And just two things. It would be useful to just know what the annual target is, if there is a target, because the comments referred to a period which is April to September. So the numbers might look, there might be some variation in the cycle, as it were, because just building on from our discussions earlier about performance management, and I just see that there's 3 sessions and only 36 attended. So I think this talking about emphasis, you've got to drive more into that area. I think those are the 2 things I just want to comment on.
The performance management and work was, it was the HR department that was holding those training sessions. We did do 3 and we have got more booked in for from February and March of this year.
Just for HR?
No, HR lead on them, but so HR are leading on them, but they are for
everyone.
everybody to be able to book onto.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's probably one that should be 1,500 or something, because everyone should be aware of it, in both directions. Thank you.
I'm curious about what sleep is. Are we training people in how to sleep properly? I'm not being flip per se, because people do have sleep deprivation and struggle to sleep with insomnia and all that sort of thing. But what's our training program that 80 people have taken advantage of here, please?
I will need to take that one away. I'm not away. Thank you.
I can take that one. That's actually part of the wellbeing programme. So that is part of the training that Nikki, within her wellbeing work, has been delivering, and it is around, like you say, looking at sleep and actually how you can best get the most the most sleep, and obviously that will affect performance if people aren't sleeping properly. So it does look at areas where.
And is it
people are-
provided in-house or externally?
It is provided in-house, is my
In-house.
understanding. Yeah,
So we got an expert on sleep in-house, have we?
it's.
I'm not being flip, but you know, if you're going to train people, you need professionals to train them in that subject matter.
Yeah. Well, it's part of the wellbeing programme, so we can take that back as a question.
Thank you very much. And Karen, speaking of wellbeing programme, would you like to cover that? Thank you.
So section 15 is wellbeing. So occupational health continues to review employees either face-to-face, via the telephone or video. We have the employee assistance programme, which is available 24/7 for employees. We have mental health first aiders. We have an internal wellbeing provision, and it provides an increasing range of education, team development and services, including signposting.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Loker.
It may be flippant and he'll probably pick me up on it, but I'm going to ask anyway. Why are councillors not included in training programs?
There is a member development training program that is coming to council in May, and you've taken advantage of some of the training modules. We've done a complete refresh of that, and it's geared to what we need to know. But if what you're saying is in well-being terms, could we have access to these training modules? I think that's one to take away. I don't decry it and don't think it's a bad idea. And I think the minute is that Karen takes it up with Sarah Clark, who takes it up with Joseph at the corporate board.
As long as there are no cost implications.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much to Karen. Thank you very much to Sam for your all the work that's gone into the report and all the work behind the report that's given us these great results. It's been very useful. Thank you very much to my colleagues for their incisive questions. The next item on the agenda is the date of the next meeting, and the date of the next meeting is the 15th of July. Seems a long way away. So in addition to the people I've thanked already, I'd like to thank Sam for acting as clerk and Thomas for all of his excellent work as a Zoom host. And with that, I'd like to bring the meeting to an end. Thank you very much. Do I get to use a gavel?